In this lesson, we'll do a quick verification on our model. All right, so we've come a pretty long way here, and before we start applying loads, I want to check my model for a few things. One, I want to make sure all my structural elements are supported properly. I want to check to make sure that my physical model is consistent with my analytical model, but I also want to make sure that I didn't miss anything, that I didn't forget to copy and monitor anything else into this project. So let's start off by going back to our Analyze tab. And what I want to do is I want to take a look at our elevations. So we're going to jump to elevations real quick. It's going to be important that we have everything copied and monitored correctly. So by default, when you open up any project, you're always going to have level 1 and 2, and that's what we have here. And I can see by the looks of this model that we did not copy in level 3, and that's posed a potential problem. So you want to make sure you get all that copied and monitored in. Now, how I know this is because I can hover over this and I can see it's still one element. It's still my link here, even when I go over this 3. Now when I come over the 2, I can see I can highlight this one, and this is the one that actually is included in our project. So what we need to do is we need to copy in the levels for this, and then we can go do some more checks. So really quickly, we're pretty familiar with this now, so we can come in here and we'll do a really quick copy monitor. So I'll go to collaborate, we'll go copy monitor, select link, and we'll copy. And I'm just going to make sure we select multiple. I'm going to select all 3 of those levels. Hit finish here. Let Revit do some thinking there. It's just letting me know it's going to rename it something else or something like that, just so it doesn't conflict with the existing 3 there. But I now see that I can now grab that 3rd level, move it over, align it with these levels, and we are in good shape. Bingo. So now levels 1, 2, 3 within my analytical model, my link, as well as levels 1, 2, 3 within my physical model. So we're able to link all those up. So it's going to be important that you get that in place. Remember, placement of your structural elements and things like that are very important. And you want to remain consistent with the model that you're working on. So I can now hit finish here, jump back to my 3D model. Now let's check out our supports as well as a consistency. Consistency is pretty easy. Like you can tell by this graphic here, it just wants to make sure that the analytical and physical model are consistent. So we'll click on that and it lets me know things are good, which I expected. But then we can go to check supports, and when I do that, I'm getting a warning message here. It looks like I'm getting 6 warning messages. And I bet you I know why. It's saying structural element may not be supported, and there's 6 of them. So I have 2 walls and 4 columns that I think are not supported, and I bet you that's what this message applies to. So what we can do is we can go ahead and just apply some supports, basically foundations and footings, to our wall and our columns to make sure these elements are supported, so then we can then run our analysis properly. So before I do that, I want to do some cleaning up a little bit. As I'm working with my foundations, I might not want to see what's going on with this floor. So we can jump to visibility graphics, and let's hide this floor real quick. We can always bring it in later if we need it. Once I see it, I'm going to deselect it, apply, and OK. All right, so it'll make working with that a little bit easier. So now I'm going to place that into our model here. So we'll say structure. We'll go with our wall first. So I'm going to select this wall, and I'm going to do the same thing for this wall. And you can see that's placed in there. But that's not going to be enough to support this column as well, because the column needs to be supported. So we can go back to structure, because the structure itself will need some footing. So what we can do is take this wall footing, join it, create an assembly with our regular footing, and maybe that'll help us out. So this time I'll go to isolated, and I'm going to do this in my plan view on level 1. And I'm just going to place my isolated footings directly underneath each column at that center point. Like so. Do the same thing down here, as well as over here. So I can now jump to my 3D view, and you can see we have that in place. But we've got some weird geometry going on here. So let's make a couple of changes. First off, I want to make sure that they got the same depth. And I'm going to choose the deepest one, just because I don't mind to have that extra support over here. But I'm going to go with this. This looks like it's, if I hover over it, there it is, 18 inches deep. This one is 12 inches deep. So we need to change the depth of our wall footing. So I'm going to select both of those. Go into edit type, and let's change that to 1'6". Now I could have duplicated this and made a whole new one if I wanted to preserve this 36 by 12, but for this example, I'm not too concerned about it. There you go. We just adjusted that size. And now what we can do is we can create maybe an assembly with this so that if we were to make changes or anything like that, it'll be a lot easier to work with than working with 3 little pieces of geometry on each side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select any one of my guys here, and actually we'll select all 3. I'll hold down Control. So I'm going to select one footing, the other footing, and then the wall. And what we'll do is we'll create an assembly. And we'll go with this one, Structural Foundations 1. When I do that, I can now hover over this, and it's now one element as opposed to all that. So let's do the same thing here. We'll select all 3 of these guys. We'll create an assembly. Now, I selected 3 of exactly the same elements, so Revit knows that I'm going to create, this assembly is going to be the same as that assembly. So I'll say OK, and you can see we have our assemblies in place. Easy as that. So now what we could do, I wonder if we can check this out. So we can maybe go to Analyze, check our supports one more time. Member support check is complete. No unsupported elements detected. Bingo. So we're good to go. So that's how you basically work with any kind of warning messages you get if you're running your checks. You want to make sure that your physical and your analytical model line up and everything is in place nicely, which is pretty easy to do. But you also want to make sure that elements are supported. You don't want any floating structural elements. You want to make sure there's footings and foundations and things like that in place. And that's exactly what we did here. And then once you do that, you run your check, and Revit will let you know if there's more work to do or if you're in good shape. And after we ran our second check, we were good to go, and there was no unsupported elements. So I'm excited about that. So in the next lesson, we'll apply some loads to this guy, and then we'll start running an analysis to check out what happens with some loading scenarios on our structure.